So this is going to be a recap of Week 12 of the 2022 NFL season, recapping all the games, big picture takeaways, and all that kind of good shit. And we're going to start off with Thursday night, Thanksgiving night. The NFL is always obviously premier showcase kind of night, big old day of football. First game, Bills at the Lions. Now, normally when people see the Lions on the Thanksgiving schedule every year, it's kind of like a cringe, like but the Lions have been playing actually kind of well going into this game and won 3 straight, battling the Bills. Bills ended up pulling this one out 28-25. Like I said, the Lions had been playing better. The Bills, they obviously still need these wins just because they're kind of in a dogfight with the Dolphins in the AFC East. So I thought it was actually a good showcase for both teams. Bills showing that they can pull out these kind of close games. That's been kind of their weak point over the past few years. But yeah, this was a fun game, surprisingly so. You never really say that about the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving, but this was a good one. Then you got your next game, Giants at the Cowboys. Always Cowboys like the Lions on Thanksgiving night. And the Cowboys, they really sort of asserted their dominance in the second half, won this game 28-20. Wasn't really that close. Giants got a sort of a late garbage time touchdown. But Cowboys showing that they are definitely a contender in the NFC. They played really well, and this was coming off of them just blowing out the Vikings 40-3 a few nights earlier in Minnesota, no less. So yeah, good showcase for the Cowboys. Giants are definitely coming back to earth. They're having a lot of injuries right now. But early on in the season, they were pulling out a bunch of wins out their butts last minute and all that. So yeah, both of these teams going in different directions. I'll put it that way. Next up, the final game of Thursday night, Thanksgiving night, Patriots at the Vikings. Vikings won this one 33-26. This was a surprisingly really high scoring kind of game. You know, it was you think with the Patriots, I didn't think the Patriots were capable about scoring this many points on the road, but they definitely Mac Jones' best game of the season. They still lost though 33-26. Special teams really did the Patriots in this one. You never really say that about the Patriots going into one of these kind of games or any kind of game under Bill Belichick. But Vikings got the win. They're up to, it's like 9-2 or 10-2, something like that. Yeah, obviously they're pulling away with the NFC North. Patriots, they're in the dogfight just to make the playoffs, and they got a tough schedule coming up. I have a friend that's a big Patriots fan, showed me their schedule. I was like, whoa, they're in a lot of must-win scenarios coming up, put it that way. So now we move over to the Sunday slate. We got your first game, Texans at the Dolphins. The Texans are the worst team in the NFL, and the Dolphins have been playing some of the best ball in the NFL. Dolphins won this one 30-15. The Dolphins really should have won by more, but they really took their foot off the gas in the second half. Really didn't do much. But the Texans have clearly cemented themselves as the worst team in the NFL, and the Dolphins continue to do great stuff this season. Been a really impressive season for them. Next game, Bengals at the Titans. Bengals won this one 20-16. This is one of the most impressive efforts, I think, of the entire season, because you had the Bengals without, obviously, Jamar Chase for another game. They were out Joe Mixon also. They go into Tennessee against a Tennessee team that's really well coached, really tough, end up pulling this game out 20-16. Really impressive effort from them. I mean, they're far from a guarantee to make the playoffs under their current situation, although now they're pulling even with the Ravens, so they're definitely doing some good work going in right now. But yeah, this was a very impressive win by them. The next game, Broncos versus Panthers, was impressive for an entirely different reason. Panthers won this one in Carolina. It was 23-10. Silly me, I thought the Broncos should actually have been favored in this game just because the Panthers, arguably definitely one of the worst teams. But in terms of how they've been playing, I guess you really take a look at the big picture, and the Panthers had been better, and the Sam Darnold actually had the start in this one. And man, the Broncos this is just an ugly situation. And then you see how the defensive end, one of the defensive ends or linemen from the Broncos got in the face of Russell Wilson. And it was just like, man, this is. I think Nathaniel Hackett, there ain't no way he's going to survive this season. This was just, it's just bad. There's no other adjective you need. It's just bad. And you're going to need some real kind of clean spray to clean up the stench that's on that team. It's just a really ugly, disappointing situation for everyone involved. The coach, obviously Russell Wilson, all the players, defense playing their ass off. The offense has been terrible. It's bad. Next up, Bears at the Jets. Another interesting one based on the results of last week when they benched Zach Wilson. The Jets did put back in Mike White. This game was in New York, and I believe it was sort of a big rainstorm going on, whatever. Bears were without Justin Fields. Jets won this one 31-10. Definitely one of the better efforts, or it might even be the best effort from the Jets this season on offense. And the thing is, with Zach Wilson, it's not like they were losing a ton of games. I think they were 5-2 under him, but it's just that his play had just been so bad. You look at his stats, it's like the worst QB in the NFL the last couple of years. So we'll see if his time is officially up there. I got Mike White. We'll see if he plays better going forward. I know he made a big splash last year, but then he came back down to earth. We'll see if I think more of the same will happen this year, and then the Jets will have a bigger issue on their hand as they kind of ruin the confidence of Wilson. He's got to sort of like earn, because they have a lot invested in that number 2 pick, which he was. So see what happens to them going forward. But I don't think Mike White is going to be the long-term solution for that team. Next is Falcons at Commanders. Commanders won this one 19-13. The Commanders just continue to win games. I think they've won like 7 of 8 or something like that after a really bad start to the season, like 1-4 or 1-5, something like that. And yeah, now they're just pulling in. They're squarely in the hunt for the playoffs. In fact, they're in the playoffs in the wild card right now. In fact, as of right now, all 4 NFC East teams are in the playoffs. Wouldn't that be amazing if that holds true to the end of the season? I don't think it will, but it's still impressive to see nonetheless this late into the season. Buccaneers Browns. This was a game I watched all the way through. Browns won this one 23-17. It felt like the score was like 17-10 for the longest time. The Buccaneers, it seemed like they were poised just to pull this one away after they took the lead in the third quarter, and seems like they were going to go ahead and start like really pulling away. They never ended up didn't. Browns defense actually played really well in this one. Browns were able to tie the game with a TD, a great catch by, I think it was one of their tight ends. Sent the game to overtime. Overtime was just kind of a mess. Both teams, neither one wanted to win it. Browns ended up winning it at the very end with a great run at the end by Chubb. And yeah, they won this one 23-17. Really weird loss for the Buccaneers. Really weird loss for Tom Brady. You don't see him lose these kind of games. But I guess it goes to show the state of the affairs from the Buccaneers. And then with the Browns, they get Deshaun Watson back next week. So I guess that'll definitely be interesting to see his return. I think it's too late for them to make anything meaningful out of this season, but it'll still be interesting nonetheless to see his long-awaited return to the NFL. Now we have next game, Ravens at the Jaguars. Jaguars won this one 28-27. This was definitely Trevor Lawrence's best performance of his young career so far. Had some really impressive drives at the end of the game. They ended up winning this one, and they won it on a 2-point attempt. I guess when you have the kind of record that they do, and it's just like, fuck it, just go ahead and go for it. They got the win. Another bad loss for the Ravens, where they didn't blow a double-digit lead in this one, but they were up by 9. And yeah, another one where they blow a sort of a big lead in the fourth quarter. And yeah, that's a team that. So some weird stuff going on with that team. And then just, if you saw what happened afterwards, Lamar Jackson got into sort of the dreaded athlete Twitter dispute with a random Twitter follower or whatever, or tweeter. And you saw what he posted. It's like, man, this whole thing about him and his contract, I just think he's just made so many bad moves, and he's betting on himself, but then they're losing these games. And his play, it's like, I mean, he's a really good quarterback, but you know, I ain't giving him no guaranteed money just because the Cleveland Browns did that to Watson. That's on them. And I don't think I'd give guaranteed money to any quarterback, any NFL player, to be honest. Unless probably like Tom Brady or something like that. But yeah, it's just a bad way that he's been handling that. And it's pretty pathetic getting into that kind of Twitter dispute. And then he has to delete the tweet. It's like, bro, you sorry in how you've been handling this contract negotiation. But that's just me, though. It's not the way I would do things. I think it's bad business. Next up, Raiders at the Seahawks. Raiders won this one 40-34. Now, the Seahawks had been riding high for a while, but I never was really a big believer in their defense, and it showed its ugly head again. Losing this one 40-34. They've lost 2 in a row now. They lost the game to the Buccaneers a couple weeks ago in Munich. They were on their bye week last week. And yeah, so now they're actually out of the playoffs right now. The 49ers have taken over their spot. We'll talk more about them in a second. As for the Raiders, you know, after the embarrassing, and I do mean embarrassing, loss to Jeff Saturday's coaching debut, won 2 in a row. Like some other teams like the Browns I talked about, I think it was too late for them to make anything super meaningful out of their season. But, you put out some good tape, put out some good momentum, and maybe they're starting to feel good about themselves. Chargers at the Cardinals. Chargers won this one 25-24. This was an absolute must win for the Cardinals. Chargers came off a brutal loss last week, losing, last minute to Mahomes again. I think they had lost the week before also. Yeah, they did. It was to the 49ers. And for the Chargers, making the playoffs is an absolute must, especially for that coach, for him to keep his job. And they had to win this one in the last minute win. So the reverse of what happened to them last week. Yeah, this is a game they had to win against sort of the hapless Cardinals right now. That's another really ugly situation, the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, to be stuck with Kyler Murray, he's not declining like Wilson has, but just his leadership, the vibes around the team, it's just so much bad energy around that team. It's ugly to watch. And I don't really know who to blame for that one. Oddly enough, I think the person that should be safe might be Cliff Kingsbury, just because I just think this kind of weird stuff that team has going on. It's hard to really blame anyone except Murray, who I think his leadership is just really is just bad. And if I was a coach, I wouldn't want anything to do with that team. That's another really ugly situation. Saints at the 49ers is the next game. 49ers won this one 13-0. The nothing is impressive. The defense has been fantastic over the last month. They just haven't allowed a point in the second half of the last month, I think, and then they just pitched another shutout here. The 13 points, well, I don't know about that. 13 points at home, that's not exactly dominant screaming. They did look great on Monday Night Football in Mexico City against the Cardinals. That was a really impressive effort, their best one of the season overall as a team. But with this one, the defense did its job, but 13 points, that's just not very impressive at all. But with that win, they do actually get into their first place in the NFC West now. As most people believe, they were obviously better than the Seahawks. The Seahawks just got off to a better start. So yeah, they'll definitely continue to cement themselves as a true contender in the NFC, but not if they keep putting forth more efforts like that. 13 points, that ain't gonna get it done. Next game, Rams at the Chiefs. A matchup between recent winners of the Super Bowl, 2 of the last 3 years. Now, the Chiefs won this one 26-10, and honestly, they should have won by more. Rams are starting their third string, someone last name Perkins or whatever it was. It's really interesting to me just because in 2018, these two teams played one of the best regular season games you'll ever see. It was a Monday night thriller where the final score was like 51-48 or something like that. It was just a fantastic game to watch. It was so good. I recommend watching that game on YouTube if you've never seen it. And with that, and back then, these two teams looked like primetime contenders. And in all honesty, they have been, because since then, both of them went to 2 Super Bowls. Both of them won 1. They haven't matched up against each other, but you see they've had success, but different paths to getting to success. Chiefs have built their team differently, smart draft picks, smartly utilizing assets, not overpaying players, stuff like that. You look at where they are right now, they're in a great position. Compare that to where the Rams are right now, and it's like, yikes, their future, it's just bleak. No draft picks, aging stars like Aaron Donald, Matthew Stafford. You got Cooper Kupp, who's injured right now. You got Jalen Ramsey, who seems disengaged. They have had the all-time worst title defense. It's just pathetic. They just look hapless, and their situation, I don't know how you get better. These guys aren't going to get younger next year. So this team, the Rams, it's just it's all-time fascinating. And even more fascinating is just the fact that the city just doesn't really seem to care. It's just like, all right, you got your Super Bowl, that's great, but the combination of all these things just make it a really fascinatingly weird and ugly season for them. Just a terrible title defense they've had. And then the Sunday nighter, we got Packers at the Eagles. Eagles won this one 40-33. Another game that was a lot more higher scoring than I thought it was going to be. Obviously, the super interesting thing about this one was Jordan Love. Aaron Rodgers went down with like a rib injury in like the third quarter or something like that. And Jordan Love came in, and Jordan Love actually had some impressive stuff in his time of playing. And I actually think it was time. The Packers, I know they're not mathematically eliminated yet, But for all intents and purposes, they got to put Jordan Love in and see what they got. And this was regardless of whether or not Rodgers had the injury or not. For me, I was thinking like, okay, give Rodgers the Eagles game. But after that, you got to play the kid. And now that they have the injury excuse with his ribs and his thumb, that it's time to play Jordan Love, let him play the whole season and see what you got going forward, because, you know, they got the 5th-year option coming up. You got to see if what they're going to do with him. You can trade him for assets. But even more so as just a football fan, I want to see the guy play and see what he can do. And he definitely looked impressive in this one. So I'm rooting for him. Hopefully he can show his worth and do some good stuff. The Eagles still continuing to run the hell out of the ball. Jalen Hurts, for me, would be second in MVP after Mahomes. So they continue to do good stuff. At the time I'm recording this, the Steelers-Colts game has not happened yet. But to be honest, I don't really care too much about that game. I mean, my goodness, Steelers-Colts, when did that game ever look good? You know, they just throwing some terrible Monday night games at Troy Aikman and Joe Buck. You don't, ESPN didn't pay those guys that big money to get these kind of games. But yeah, I don't really care too much about that one. But for the sake of Buck and Aikman's sanity, hopefully they can get some good kicks out of it. I'll put it that way. So yeah, week 12, you know, solid week of football, I guess. Week 13 looks unbelievable. There are some fantastic games. 49ers, Dolphins, Chiefs, Bengals, Bills, Patriots Thursday night. That's going to be a really fascinating one. There's some great stuff for week 13. So obviously coming to the end of the season, a lot of must-win scenarios for a lot of teams. I'd put the Patriots squarely in that list. The Chargers also, some other teams here and there. So yeah, it should be another fun week of football for week 13. So that'll do it for this recap video. If you made it to the end, thank you for watching.